Finding out if you really love the work you're trying to pursue, that's something you can only really know by spending a hugely inordinate amount of time with it. Welcome to The Art of Charm. I'm Jordan Harbinger. I'm here with producer Jason DeFilippo, as always. Today, we got a toolbox. I'm going to discuss why quantity matters more than quality. Yeah, you heard me right. I think the amount of work matters more than the quality of work. What are you talking about, Jordan? I'm going to get into that. Don't worry. We'll explain all that. I have a lot of tips on producing more, why producing more is better than just trying to strive for perfection. And I'm going to show you some studies that prove that I'm not just talking out of the wrong end here. Of course, there's going to be a worksheet for today's episode, as always, so you can make sure you understand what the heck I'm talking about in this episode. And that link to the worksheet is going to be in the show notes at theartofcharm.com/podcast. All right, let's do this. So there's this story about James Joyce that I can't get out of my head. One day, in the middle of working on Ulysses, that's a book that basically rewrote the laws of fiction and is still probably the most impressive novel written to date. Anyway, he's in the middle of writing Ulysses when he and a friend decide to catch up. And Joyce says, "I've been working hard on Ulysses all friggin' day." He probably didn't say friggin', but I would have. And his friend says, "Oh, that must mean you've written a lot already." And Joyce says something like, "Nah, I've only written 2 sentences. So his friend looks at him, probably thinks he's kidding, but Joyce ain't smiling. So he says, "Oh, so you're just looking for the perfect words, right?" And Joyce says, "No, I have the words already. What I'm seeking is the perfect order of words in the sentence." And this type of witty, presumably fictional little vignette reminded me of this cliche bit of advice that's been going around for a long time now. So we've all heard that quality matters more than quantity. All right, fine. This is a mantra most of us are raised with from the time we're kids. A handful of deep friendships is more fulfilling than a sprawling network of contacts. Okay, got it. Focusing on 1 or 2 projects will produce better results than spreading ourselves across dozens of them. Of course. Investing in a handful of partners will bring more happiness than dating indiscriminately. And if you're in your 30s, you know what I'm saying. But if you're in your 20s, you're probably going hard putting this one to the test, and good for you. So yeah, this stuff is all generally true. Quality will always matter, and quality is what we're all striving for. In our careers, in our relationships, in our art, in our health, in every area of our lives, we're striving for quality. But the idea that we should be focused on quality over quantity, as if these are 2 values that are incompatible somehow, that's a simplistic and, in my humble opinion, outdated idea. Because the latest research, along with our everyday experience and our deepest intuition, tells us that quality and quantity are intricately linked. And here's what I mean by that. Quantity is the road to quality. We can't have quality without quantity. Believing otherwise is what I call the cult of quality. And I think we need to revisit this idea if we're going to actually achieve any level of mastery, which brings us back to Mr. Joyce. Stories like the one I told you make sense when you think about how powerful Joyce's writing really is. It's hard to imagine a killer book like that coming together without Joyce obsessing insanely over how good it could potentially be. But it's also the kind of story that contributes to this myth of the crazy brilliant artist hunched over his work, worrying about every tiny detail, compelled by quality, and suspicious of quantity. What people forget is that Ulysses is also 700 pages long. And he wrote Dubliners, which is a short story collection, along with another novel before Ulysses, and left his most experimental novel unfinished when he died, to say nothing of all the writing he must have just scrapped along the way. Whatever myth we have about Joyce, that guy wrote a ton of stuff. And it was his prolific quantity, in addition to his obsessive quality, that made him so successful. Without one, he wouldn't have the other. It was only because he wrote so much and so often that he was able to selectively go deep on questions of extreme quality, like spending an entire day on the order of words in 1 or 2 sentences. And that's the kind of mastery that's possible only when you produce a huge amount of work. And that's why I want to talk about the power of volume. In a few weeks here, the Art of Charm podcast will hit its 1,000th episode. That's insane. Over 11 years, the show has grown from an informal psychology conversation, and I say that in air quotes because it was like 2 drunk guys in a basement at that time, into a leading self-help, success, social dynamics, psychology podcast. I'm insanely proud of what the team here has built with this show. It's literally the most fun, most exciting, most meaningful project that I've ever been a part of. But here's the crazy thing. It was only a few years ago when we had produced about 300 episodes and change that I finally began to hit my stride as an interviewer, in my opinion. I'd mostly gotten over the hiccups of hosting, we'd ironed out all of the technical challenges of production, and I zeroed in on the questions and the themes and the guests that make this job so damn exciting. And that was after 300 freaking episodes. Now, as we near this new milestone, the 1,000 episode milestone, I feel we've really started coming into our own. The caliber of our guests, the quality of the show, the volume of our output, we're now creating a consistently strong product with an incredible community of listeners all around the world, and I feel deeply connected to this work after 1,000 episodes. And that's how long it took for us to get to this point. Even though we aimed to put out a high-quality podcast from the beginning, more or less, the full potential of this show didn't emerge for literally hundreds of episodes. That's hundreds of hours of audio, plus hundreds of hours more in prep, and post-production, and promotion, and marketing, learning, discussion. It's like Miles Davis once said, man, sometimes it takes you a long time to sound like yourself. Because true mastery, as we know, takes years, usually decades, to achieve. And even the most talented, naturally gifted people have to put in a huge amount of time to become incredible. And that principle applies to all people in all fields, in all cultures, at every single point in history. There's just no way around it. In this book called Art and Fear, David Bales and Ted Orland, they tell this interesting story about a ceramics class. On the first day of the class, the teacher announces the students are going to be divided into two groups. Half the class is told they're going to be graded on quantity, right? However much they can make. And on the last day of class, the teacher said he's going to come up with some scales and weigh all the ceramic pots the students had made. And you can imagine, you're going to think they're just going to make a bunch of crap. And largely, you're right here. 50 pounds of pottery is going to get an A, 40 pounds of pottery is going to get a B, 30 pounds will get a C. You get the idea. The other half of the class was told they'd be graded on quality alone. All they had to do was bring one beautiful, perfectly designed pot to their final class. And that one pot will determine their entire final grade. That sounds like law school, except you're not making pots, just at exams. And at the grading time, the teacher discovered something real interesting. The best and most beautiful pots, they were all produced by the group graded for quantity. The worst and least creative pots all hailed from the group graded for quality. So what the heck is going on here? And as the authors explain in the book, while the quantity group was busily just churning out piles of work and learning from their mistakes and not even caring about making them because they're graded on the weight of the clay, the quality group had sat theorizing about perfection, and in the end, they had little more to show for their efforts other than grandiose theories in a pile of dead clay. So what does this mean for us? It means that to make amazing things, you have to make a lot of amazing things and probably start by making lots of crappy, not so amazing things as well. So quantity and quality. Quality because of quantity. Now, I could tell you dozens more stories about the power of quantity, but I think now you get the point. But how exactly does quantity lead to quality? That's the important question here. After all, you could just produce a lot more crappy work and never get any better, right? And volume alone, that doesn't lead to quality. It's the interplay of volume and talent and effort that produces results, right? Okay, all true. But quantity also delivers some really important benefits that are distinct from just getting better. In a way, it produces results that support quality and make quality more attainable and more meaningful in the long term. This all starts with the fact that quantity reinforces completion. What do I mean by that? One of the hardest things we all struggle with is finishing what we start. We talked about this with John Acuff on an earlier episode of the show. We all know how easy it is to bail on goals that we set, how difficult it is to see them through, especially when things get hard. And I'd say the vast majority of us, including me, struggle with this particular problem. One answer is to up the quantity of what we produce. When you decide to create more work, more articles, more relationships, more paintings, more free throws, whatever it is, when you commit to that quantity, you automatically create commitments to get it done. If there's a deadline or a time frame, even better, you know what you have to finish. Committing to volume means committing to completion, and the psychological benefits of completion are huge.
You're listening to The Art of Charm, a special Toolbox episode on quantity over quality. Stick around and we'll get right back to the show after these important announcements.
This episode is sponsored in part by ZipRecruiter. Does your business have any New Year's resolutions? Here's an important one every business should consider. Make your hiring process more efficient and effective. And in fact, hiring is always a pain. You think you're good to judge a character, but you got to make sure that they can do the job. This year, let ZipRecruiter help. No one's done a better job of transforming how you find the right talent than they have. The way that works is a little bit unique in terms of job finding or candidate finding, in this case, services. ZipRecruiter posts your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards with one click. Then ZipRecruiter actively looks for the most qualified candidates and invites them to apply. So it's not just like, here's a job, every schmo on their mom's couch should click here. They find the right candidates. Then they review every application to identify the top candidates so you don't miss the great matches. And that's why ZipRecruiter is a little different. Unlike other hiring sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on the right candidates finding you. It'll go out and find them. That's why 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day, which sounds pretty amazing to me, actually. Some hires take forever. And of course, that's not going to be everybody, but man, just one day, and they do this annoying work for you. ZipRecruiter is a great way to hire. It's the smartest way to hire. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. AoC family can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. Go to ziprecruiter.com/charm. That's ziprecruiter.com/charm. Support for this podcast and the following message comes from Amica Insurance. We're living in the age of the discerning shopper, where savvy consumers increasingly favor brands that value authenticity, ethics, and a great shopping experience. Amica is committed to being a company people trust. Visit meetamica.com/Forbes and find out why 95% of Amica customers with combined auto and home policies stay with them. One more time, that's meetamica.com/Forbes to find out more about Amica Insurance. This episode is sponsored in part by Hewlett-Packard. Do you travel for work? Is your mobile workstation keeping up with your travel schedule? Probably not. It may be time to upgrade to HP's ZBook 17 G4 mobile workstation. That sounds very advanced, Jason. I don't know. HP's ZBook 17 G4 mobile workstation? That's like a spaceship. The ZBook 17 G4 mobile workstation is powered by Intel's 7th generation Core i5 processor. Let's get a little ding here, Jason. Now that I got that out of my system, it's a portable powerhouse designed for the road. It's made for creative professionals with demanding projects, so don't compromise your work while traveling. HP is your solution with the world's most secure and manageable PCs and printers, a dedicated sales team to help you with your growing business, and up to 3-year standard warranty on select PCs. For a limited time only, save 35% on HP's ZBook 17 G4 mobile workstation and other best-selling business PCs with Intel Core processors exclusively for AoC family. Visit hp.com/charm and enter code CHARM at checkout. Free shipping and returns available year-round along with customer support directly from the experts. Offer available while supplies last. Hey, whether this is your first or 1,000th, if we've hit that milestone already, episode of The Art of Charm, glad to have you here with us. As always, I would love to send you some of our most popular episodes, as well as the rest of the Toolbox, where we study the science of people and discuss concepts such as reading body language and nonverbal communication, the science of attraction and charisma, negotiation techniques, social engineering, networking, influence, persuasion, and everything else that we teach here on The Art of Charm. So be sure to check out the rest of the Toolbox at theartofcharm.com/toolbox. And of course, we've got worksheets for today's episode, just like we always do, so you can make sure you solidify your understanding, bake it, microwave it, whatever you need to do to get it popped in your noggin. That's going to be at theartofcharm.com/podcast. You're going to look for the show notes, and that worksheet's going to be plucked right in there.
Thank you for listening and supporting The Art of Charm. To learn more about our sponsors, visit theartofcharm.com/advertisers. But for now, let's get back to Jordan and the Toolbox.
For one thing, studies show that the closer we get to finishing a task, the more we believe it's worth completing, even if there are compelling reasons to bail. This sort of holds hands with sunk cost fallacy and other things like that, other bias, right? But this is a good bias. We can use this. And as we complete these tasks, our brains get a satisfying hit of dopamine, the neurotransmitter that serves as a precursor to epinephrine, which gives us that pleasurable high associated with getting stuff done. And that high, in turn, makes subsequent tasks much more doable, creates a ripple effect of productivity across our lives. And here's the really cool part. Dopamine isn't just useful for short-term productivity bursts. It's also been linked to the formation of lifelong habits. from consistency to resilience, which is why dopamine is often referred to as the reward molecule. You've all heard this before. So there's real magic here, rooted in our biochemistry in completing what we set out to do. And the way to harness that magic is by committing to completing it simply by increasing the volume of our work. You dig? But there's another reason to pursue quantity, and it's the idea that quantity forges connection. That sounds a little woo-woo, so I'm going to go down this rabbit hole here. There are certain lessons about our work that only a huge amount of volume can teach. The most obvious benefit to putting in time and effort is getting better at the principles, the methods, and the craft of our work. The more effort we put in, the more skill we get out. This is the most obvious connection between quantity and quality. But we develop something even more powerful when we increase the volume of our work. For example, finding out if you really love the work you're trying to pursue, that's something you can only really know by spending a hugely inordinate amount of time with it. And learning what it's like to really devote your life to that work, how it feels, what the lifestyle's like, how it shapes your relationships and the moods and your worldview. You can only really learn that by doing something for a really long time. In the early days of the podcast, I would imagine what it would be like to host a huge show, radio, whatever, otherwise. But only by actually building it over years did I realize that I love the process enough to work through all these painstaking challenges of creating a great show. That relationship with your work only truly develops with quantity. It takes years and thousands of hours to really fall in love with what you do. Take it from me. I know this firsthand. And it also takes that long to fully appreciate all of the possibilities and the challenges and the idiosyncrasies of your craft and the lifestyle that comes out of it. There's just no shortcut for that kind of connection. You can't hack it. You can't buy it. You can't inherit it. You can only build it slowly and deliberately with lots and lots of work, which is another reason that quantity is so essential. And finally, quantity frees us. James Joyce might not have totally agreed with what I'm about to say here, but I am convinced that being too precious about our work can be a major hindrance to getting better. The less work we put out, the more pressure we put on that small volume of work to be successful, the more we get frustrated when it falls short of our expectations, the more we beat ourselves up for not living up to our standards that we invented in our heads. But if we increase the amount of work we put out, then each individual piece, it just matters less. That frees us up to explore. We can try new options. We can make mistakes. We can forgive ourselves when that work is disappointing, which it might be, and it definitely will be at some point in your career, in your body of work. It's going to happen. It seems counterintuitive though, right? By producing more work that has the potential to be bad, we actually increase the likelihood of producing better work that isn't bad, that succeeds. That's something we love. So to return to this podcast one last time, I remember obsessing to an unhealthy degree, honestly, over the quality of the first 100 episodes. I made it really hard. I can't even believe we got through it all. And this makes sense. Our library was so small. Those episodes basically represented everything we were capable of at the time. And as we kept recording, the size of our canvas multiplied. The pressure we felt on each individual episode, that decreased. The podcast became even more liberating when we increased the number of episodes that we put out each week. And I remember that feeling. Like I had some room to breathe, to try new questions, new techniques, to accept when an episode could have gone better, and to think of each episode as an incremental opportunity to learn rather than as some obligation to be absolutely perfect. We increased our quantity, which took some pressure off the quality, which freed us up to get better more often and more quickly, which is exactly what allows us to cultivate the amazing quality we always wanted to achieve in the first place. So, quality is still our end game, for sure. Excellence, mastery, success. That's what we're all here to achieve. But instead of thinking about quality as this sacred value to be revered by ignoring quantity, we need to embrace quantity as an essential path toward quality. So how do we make that shift a reality in our lives? Well, it's actually very simple. It's not always easy, but it is simple. First, commit to measurably increasing your quality. This means writing down exactly what you want to complete and putting a time frame on it. I say writing because saying it or thinking it has a funny way of kind of letting us off the hook. Trust me, committing it to paper or iPhone or whiteboard or whatever surface you choose, that'll make this much more real. For example, you might decide to go from writing 2 to 5 blog posts a week and commit to finishing those pieces by sending them to a close friend every Sunday night. Or you might want to take your networking more seriously by making 3 introductions every week, which I recommend, by the way, which you schedule on your calendar. Big or small, we need to formalize our commitment by saying, I'm doing this now, and writing it down. And then we need to quantify it by saying, I'm going to do X number of things. And then we need to create a time frame by saying, I'm going to do this by this time or this date, and that's when I know it needs to be done. It's logistical. That's a little boring. I get it. But it is the essential first step to making our quantity real. Second, enjoy the process of increasing volume. As we've said, upping our volume instantly increases the size of our canvas. That frees us to learn, explore, play, and discover at a much faster rate with much lower stakes. So enjoy that process. It's actually one of the gifts of quantity. That means checking in every now and again to remind yourself that getting better at your goal, your job, or your craft, that's the main point of this process. It also means using your new volume to try out new ideas and approaches. We don't need to do exactly the same thing we were doing at our old level of output. With more blog posts, we can tackle new subjects, new voices, and new tones. With more free throws, we can experiment with different stances, elbow placements, and visualizations. With more products, we can play with new features, new solutions, and new designs. That is the gift of quantity. Third, trust that your quantity is leading to quality. When you increase your quantity, it's normal to sometimes feel you've moved away from actually getting better. Ironically, the mind wants to tell us that focusing on quantity means we're no longer concerned about quality. We don't care anymore, even though we've dramatically increased our chances of actually attaining that quality just by playing the numbers game here. And in a certain way, look, the mind is right. When you put out more volume, you risk producing more mediocre work, or at least you let go of an insane desire for perfection in smaller doses. But in the bigger picture, prioritizing quantity is exactly what will lead to stronger skills, greater freedom, increased confidence, and more interesting ideas for that matter, all of which directly contribute to quality. So even when it doesn't feel like it, trust that putting out more work is moving you closer to greatness. And I can tell you from personal experience and hundreds of interviews with successful people that you absolutely cannot go backward if you produce more work. In fact, you're virtually guaranteed to get better the more you do something. And that right there is the simple but profound magic of committing to quantity. So before we wrap up here and send you off to dive back into your work, I want to share one more thing James Joyce said about his work. He said, I am tomorrow what I established today. I am today what I established yesterday or some previous day. What we establish, which comes down to our habits, our goals, and our commitments, really does determine the quality of who we become. And who we become is a function of the quantity we produce as a means to the quality we're all striving to achieve. All right, if you enjoyed this and you understood what the heck I'm talking about, if you agree or disagree, I don't care. You can tweet at me your number one takeaway, argument, or agreement. I'm at The Art of Charm on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram at Jordan Harbinger. And don't forget, we've got that worksheet for today's episode so you can solidify your understanding. You're going to have little drills and exercises in there that you can fill out. You can print them off. You can keep on your phone. I don't care what you do with it. Just know that it's there for your use. And that's going to be in the show notes at theartofcharm.com/podcast. That worksheet will be right in there. A little convenient PDF. And we made them mobile responsive. You can use them on your phone. We tried it. We tested it. They're going to show up right. You don't have to worry about it blowing up your phone like all these other PDF things don't seem to work. And of course, we have our challenge at theartofcharm.com/challenge. That challenge is about improving your networking and your connection skills, those people skills, those charisma skills, those social capital skills. And it's free. A lot of people don't know that. It's free. That's the point. We want you to get the ball rolling, get some forward momentum, apply the things you're learning here on the show to your life every day. And we'll send you our fundamentals toolbox that I mentioned earlier in the show. That includes some great stuff that you can apply right away. Always practical with us here at The Art of Charm. We talk about body language, nonverbal communication, negotiation techniques, charisma, networking, influence, persuasion, and everything else that we teach here on The Art of Charm. It will make you a better networker, a better connector, and hell, it'll make you a better thinker. That's the idea. And that's all at theartofcharm.com/challenge. This episode of The Art of Charm was produced by Jason DeFilippo. Jason Sanderson is our audio engineer and editor, and the show notes on the website are by Robert Fogarty. transcriptions by transcriptionoutsourcing.net. I'm your host, Jordan Harbinger. If you can think of anyone who might benefit from the episode you've just heard, please pay us the highest compliment. Pay it forward by sharing this episode with that person. It only takes a moment, and great ideas are meant to be shared. Even if I do say so myself, I thought these ideas were good. All right. So share the show with friends and enemies. Have a happy new year, everybody, and leave everything and everyone better than you found them. The Art of Charm is supported by CastBox. CastBox is the fastest growing, highest rated podcast app on iOS and Android. CastBox has over 50 million free episodes that more than 10 million users download and listen to wherever and whenever. And now, for all AoC family, once you've downloaded the CastBox app, click Go Premium and enter promo code AoC to get 6 free months of premium features. CastBox is even giving away a free iPhone 10 to 1 out of every 500 users who register. So head on over to the App Store or the Google Play Store and download CastBox now. And by the way, I love this app. It allows you to search for things inside podcasts. It's a really fast-growing app. They're putting a lot of effort and funding into it. It's really looking good. I think it's going to be one of the top ways to listen to any show, especially The Art of Charm. So go grab CastBox, enter promo code AoC under Go Premium, and get those 6 free months of premium features.